Together healed old wounds. What if I told you that in 1975, Muhammad Ali walked into a hospital room expecting to visit a dying fan, but instead came face to face with a Vietnam veteran who called him a traitor? The man in that bed had lost both legs in Vietnamese jungles, while Ali fought legal battles at home. What happened in that final hour didn't just heal decades of hatred. It proved that sometimes the greatest victories happen when enemies choose to become brothers. If this story moves you, hit that subscribe button and share a time when understanding triumphed over anger. November 3rd, 1975. Walter Reed Army Medical Center. In room 314, Sergeant First Class Robert Bobby Patterson lay dying, his body succumbing to infections from stepping on a landmine outside Da Nang 7 years earlier. At 29, Bobby had outlived doctors' expectations after losing both legs in 1968, but time was running out. Muhammad Ali walked down the hallway, carrying a signed boxing glove, expecting to meet a dying fan. His handlers had told him room 314 housed a boxing admirer who'd requested to meet his hero. What they hadn't known was that Bobby Patterson had spent 7 years nurturing hatred for Muhammad Ali so intense, it had become his identity. From Bobby's perspective, Ali represented everything wrong with 1960s America. While Bobby died in Vietnamese jungles, Ali lived in luxury, made millions, and refused to serve. To Bobby, Ali wasn't a conscientious objector. He was a coward who'd let better men die in his place. The meeting request hadn't come from admiration. It came from confrontation. Bobby wanted to look Muhammad Ali in the eye and tell him exactly what he thought of the man he considered America's most visible traitor. "So you're Muhammad Ali?" Bobby said, voice weak but venomous. The great champion who was too good to fight for his country. Ali stopped, signed boxing glove still in hand. This wasn't just anger. This was dying hatred with nothing to lose. "I came because I heard you were a boxing fan," Ali said quietly. Bobby laughed bitterly. "Boxing fan? Until I realized my favorite fighter was a traitor who let boys like me die while he counted money." Ali could see the stumps where Bobby's legs used to be, hidden under hospital blankets. The pain in his eyes wasn't just physical. It was the deeper agony of forgotten sacrifice. "Sir," Ali began, "don't serve me. I know what you're doing. Trying to repair your image by visiting warriors you were too coward to stand beside." Ali could have left. Should have left. But something in Bobby's eyes stopped him, pain deeper than physical wounds. "Can I sit down?" Ali asked. "It's a free country. Free because better men than you fought to keep it that way." Ali sat beside Bobby's bed. Neither spoke for a long moment. "What's your name?" Ali finally asked. "Sergeant First Class Robert Patterson." "Bobby to my friends, not that we're friends." "Bobby. How long you been here?" 7 years. Ever since that landmine took my legs trying to save my squad. Been fighting infections since. While I've been dying here, you've been on TV saying the war was wrong." Ali leaned forward. "Bobby, every day since my decision about Vietnam, I've thought about men like you. But I need you to understand. I didn't refuse because I was scared of dying. I refused because I couldn't kill people I had no reason to kill. So killing's wrong when Muhammad Ali might do it, but fine when Bobby Patterson has to. No. Each man follows his conscience. You followed yours to Vietnam. I followed mine, refusing to go. Both took courage, but I paid the price for your conscience. While you were safe, I got my legs blown off." Ali was quiet. "Bobby, you're right. You paid a price I didn't. But I paid differently. They stripped my title, banned me for 3 years, threatened 5 years prison. That's not the same as losing legs. No, it's not. What you sacrificed is bigger. But Bobby, do you think the war was worth what it cost you?" Bobby's face contorted with pain. "I have to believe it was, because if not, I lost my legs for nothing." Ali placed his hand on Bobby's arm. "Your sacrifice wasn't for nothing. Even if the war was wrong, your courage wasn't. Your willingness to serve matters regardless. Tears formed in Bobby's eyes. But you didn't go. You were smarter. I wasn't smarter. I had different experiences. Growing up black in the South, I knew what it felt like being told to fight for freedom in a country that didn't give me freedom. For the next 30 minutes, two men who should have been enemies talked like brothers. Ali asked Bobby about his childhood in Iowa, about his decision to enlist at 18, about the friends he'd lost in the rice paddies of Vietnam. Bobby, despite himself, found himself opening up to the man he'd hated for so long. There was this kid, Jimmy Santos, Bobby said, his voice growing softer. 17 years old from Puerto Rico, stepped on a mine 2 weeks before his tour was up. He showed me pictures of his girl every night. She was pregnant. He never got to meet his son. Ali listened intently, understanding that Bobby was sharing sacred memories. You know what the worst part is? Bobby continued. It's not the legs. It's not even the pain. It's that nobody cares anymore. The war's over. Everybody wants to forget it happened. And guys like me are just reminders of something everybody wants to put behind them. Jimmy died for nothing. All of them died for nothing. I care, Ali said simply. I care about what you went through. I care about Jimmy Santos and every boy who didn't come home. And I'm sorry, Bobby. I'm sorry that you had to go through hell while I was home. I'm sorry that you lost your legs. I'm sorry about Jimmy. And I'm sorry that people have forgotten your sacrifice. Bobby stared at Ali for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. You really mean that? You're not just saying it because I'm dying. I mean every word, you and Jimmy and all your friends you answered when your country called. That took courage. Even if I believed the war was wrong, that's when Bobby Patterson broke down. 7 years of pain, anger, and isolation came pouring out in great heaving sobs. He cried for his legs, for Jimmy Santos, for all the boys who never came home, for the war that had taken everything from him, and for the anger he'd carried so long it had become part of his identity. Ali didn't say anything. He just held Bobby's hand while the veteran cried, understanding that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is simply witnessing their pain. When Bobby finally stopped crying, he looked at Ali with different eyes. The hatred was gone, replaced by something approaching peace. I've been hating you for 7 years, Bobby said. Blaming you for everything that went wrong. For Jimmy's death? For my legs? For all of it? But you're not the enemy, are you? No, Bobby. I'm not your enemy. Never was. I called you a traitor. You had every right to be angry with me. I made a choice that meant other people had to go in my place. Men like you and Jimmy had to carry that burden. That's a heavy thing to live with. Bobby was quiet for a moment, processing this admission. Mohammed, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think God can forgive me for the things I did over there? For the people I killed? I see their faces every night. Some of them weren't much older than Jimmy. Ali leaned closer, his voice filled with genuine compassion. Bobby, I believe God forgives anyone who's truly sorry, and from what I can see, you've been carrying that pain for a long time. That tells me you got a good heart. The fact that you see their faces, that you feel sorry, that's not weakness. That's what makes you human. I don't feel like I have a good heart. Hearts don't feel good when they're broken, Ali said gently. But they're still good hearts. And Bobby, I want you to know something else. Jimmy Santos didn't die for nothing. None of them did. They died because they believed they were protecting something. Even if the war was wrong, their courage was real. Their love for their country was real. That matters. As the afternoon wore on, Ali and Bobby talked about faith, nightmares, and the loneliness of being forgotten. Ali shared his own struggles with guilt and death threats. Bobby told of Jimmy Santos, the 17-year-old who died 2 weeks before going home. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if you'd gone, Bobby said. Would Jimmy still be alive? The war would have happened with or without me. Those boys would have died whether I was there or not. But maybe I'm here now to tell people about Jimmy Santos. When visiting hours ended, Bobby said, Mohammed, I'm sorry I called you a traitor. You're not. You followed your conscience, like I followed mine, just in different directions. You served with honor. That's something I'll carry forever. Will you come back tomorrow? That's a promise from one American to another. Ali visited Bobby Patterson 4 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each visit, they talked about different things: boxing, faith, Bobby's childhood dreams of becoming a mechanic, Ali's hopes for his post-boxing career. They discussed Vietnam less and less, finding common ground in their shared humanity rather than their different choices. On his final visit, Bobby made an unexpected request. "Mohammed, I want you to have something." He reached into his bedside table and pulled out his Purple Heart medal. "I want you to keep this. Not because I agree with what you did, but because I understand why you did it. And I want people to remember that courage comes in different forms." "Bobby, I can't take that. That's yours. You earned it. I earned it. And now I'm giving it to you. Promise me something when people ask about it. Tell them about Jimmy Santos. Tell them about the boys who didn't come home. Don't let them be forgotten." Bobby Patterson died peacefully on November 20th, 1975, with Muhammad Ali holding his hand. His last coherent words were about Jimmy Santos and a request for Ali to speak at his funeral. The funeral, 2 days later in a small church in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, was attended by perhaps 50 people, mostly family members, and a few fellow patients from Walter Reed, who'd made the difficult journey. Many of the local veterans had come expecting to protest Ali's presence, to boo the man they still saw as a traitor who had no business eulogizing a war hero. Instead, they heard Muhammad Ali deliver what many would later call the most powerful speech of his life. "Bobby Patterson called me a traitor when we first met," Ali began, his voice carrying clearly through the small church, "and he had every right to. I made choices that meant men like Bobby had to serve in my place, had to face dangers I never faced, had to carry burdens I never carried." Ali paused, looking out at the faces in the congregation. Skeptical veterans, grieving family members, fellow patients who'd witnessed the transformation of their friends' final days. "But over the past 2 weeks, Bobby taught me something profound. He taught me that 2 men can disagree completely about the most important question of their generation and still find respect for each other. He taught me that courage doesn't look the same on every man. But courage is courage nonetheless." Ali's voice grew stronger as he continued. "Bobby told me about a boy named Jimmy Santos, 17 years old, from Puerto Rico, died 2 weeks before his tour ended. Jimmy never got to meet his son. Bobby carried that pain for 7 years, wondering if Jimmy died for nothing. Today I want to tell you that Jimmy Santos and Bobby Patterson and every man who served didn't die for nothing. They died because they answered their country's call. Even if you think the war was wrong, and I do, their willingness to serve when called was right. Their courage was real. Their sacrifice mattered." The church was completely silent. Even the veterans who'd come to protest were listening intently. "Bobby and I never agreed about Vietnam," Ali concluded. "But we found something more important than agreement. We found understanding. We found forgiveness. We found brotherhood." Ali held up Bobby's Purple Heart. "Bobby gave me this medal, not because he agreed with my choices, but because he wanted people to remember that courage takes many forms. Today I want to establish the Bobby Patterson Foundation, to support wounded veterans and make sure boys like Jimmy Santos are never forgotten." The applause grew stronger. When Ali finished, veteran after veteran approached him, not to argue but to share their stories, their pain, their need to be heard. The foundation Ali established grew into one of the most effective veteran support organizations of the 1970s, helping thousands of forgotten Vietnam veterans. Ali kept Bobby's Purple Heart on his desk for life, next to his Olympic medal. When asked about it, he'd tell about Bobby Patterson, the veteran who called him traitor and taught him brotherhood. The story reminds us deepest divides can heal when people choose understanding over hatred. 2 men who should have been enemies found respect in shared humanity. Sometimes the greatest victories don't happen before crowds. Sometimes they happen in quiet hospital rooms where dying men find peace and living men find forgiveness. Sometimes the championship that matters most isn't won with fists, it's won with your heart.